Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Lee.
Today, we want to talk to you a little bit more about what the woman that struggles with pelvic floor pain looks like, pelvic floor incontinence looks like, pelvic floor prolapse looks like. What are the common scenarios that you see with these kind of conditions, and just kind of give you an idea of what women struggle with. Lee, we had a great first episode. It was just really fun to talk through things and to remember, to take a stroll down memory lane of when we first met, and to kind of talk about your history and your, particularly your specialism with, or specialty rather, with women's pelvic floor therapy. So it was fun.
Well, I enjoyed it too. I think we had, it was good topics to get us started, and hopefully we can dive in deeper as we go with each podcast.
Yes. So last time we talked about the three main conditions that make up pelvic floor dysfunction. We talked about incontinence, urinary and fecal incontinence a little bit. We didn't really talk about too many statistics surrounding that. But we also spoke about pelvic organ prolapse, and then also we talked about pelvic pain. We talked a little bit about prevalence in the United States and even worldwide of these conditions, and just how big a problem it is, and that the stigma is starting to crack surrounding it.
Yes, and that is awesome to see.
Absolutely. So this episode, I thought would be nice if we could share stories. You and I have personal stories of friends or even ourselves, of trouble in those three areas with urinary incontinence, with pelvic pain and pelvic organ prolapse. But also, I think if we can talk about what are some of the common stories, like common threads? You have 20 years of experience. You've studied this topic. And just so that our listeners could understand what's real common, and maybe they could identify themselves in that story, because they're common threads, I think, across those three.
You know, I feel like a biggie is a lot of women come in and they just feel like they don't have control over things. So if it's incontinence, stress incontinence, urge or frequency incontinence, their lives have just started turning into it's based off of their issues with incontinence. So, I go to the store and I'm looking for the bathrooms. I'm really hesitant to go to a movie because I'm not going to make it through. If I'm out with family or friends and I laugh too much or start enjoying myself, I'm going to have incontinence. And, I'm going to be embarrassed by this. Or I can't go have coffee with my girlfriend because that's an irritant to me, and I'm going to have to go to the bathroom frequently and possibly have to change my pants. And so their lives start to revolve around this problem. And I think that's the biggest thing that we want women to know, or that we want women to be able to do, is take back control of their lives and control over this issue. So don't let the issue control you. We're going to teach you how to control the issue.
Absolutely. Right. Well, there's so many nuggets that you said in there. I really like what you said about the coffee shop. I'll bet you we have listeners out there that are like, yeah, I never even realized it's because it's the coffee, that it's always difficult to do that. Or maybe conversely, someone has invited me to coffee, yet I order water and don't really touch it the whole time. And it's like, I might enjoy coffee. So to be inauthentic and to say, oh, well, I don't even know what. I already had my coffee for the day.
I want to hang out with my friends, and they're going to have coffee, or maybe they're going to have drinks after dinner. And I know that it affects me, but I'm not sure why. And so then I'm hesitant to join my friends because I can't partake in what they're partaking in, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. With those two examples too, or several examples you gave, I told you there's so many nuggets in that. I heard you talk about two different kinds of incontinence in that, I think. So you correct me. So one, you were talking about laughter and enjoying, but being afraid that I would have leakage of urine and that I would have uncontrollable ability with my bladder. And so tell us a little bit more about what that kind of incontinence is and so forth, and maybe other ways to recognize that.
Right. And so it may be, you and your friends are runners. And so you want to go out on a run. And I never leak with anything else, but when I go and for a run, I leak.
Yes.
Or I have incontinence.
Yes.
And, we're really good friends, but I don't really want to pee my pants when I run.
Right.
And so sometimes it's like, well, maybe if you're working really hard and sweaty, no one will know, right?
That's true. Yes, that's true. I have heard that.
Yeah, I've heard people
if
say
my
that.
clothes are wet, maybe everyone will think that it's from
this
sweat.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's still uncomfortable, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So whether someone really knows why your legs are wet or not, it's still an uncomfortable thing. And that's a big goal. We want to be able to exercise. I mean, basically, we just don't want things holding us back. I'm very much like that. I want to do what I want to do.
Right.
And I am angry about it if something's slowing me down or stopping me.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. Remember personally even wanting to run a 5K and like that was going to be a big enough goal for me, and I did do it and did well. I mean, whatever. But what I mean is I finished it. Well, it's a relative term there. I did it without stopping, maybe.
That's what I used to always say. I just want to beat the man wearing jeans. There's always one. I mean,
so funny. Oh, yes. But I was worried. I was worried, and I almost didn't enter that contest because I thought, what if? And what if my shorts are wet? What if, not only my shorts, but my socks and whatever, I mean, that's a very real thing for runners or for athletes in general.
Or for athletes, it may be when you push yourself really hard or when you take it to that next level. And so that's holding you back from being the best you can be. And that's very frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think about the runner starting out of the running blocks, right?
Yeah.
Like there's such force to that
Yes.
to gain momentum
and quick and that speed and, that momentum that they have to have there. And it's just kind of a moment that you can't control. And nor do I want to be thinking about, gotta hold, gotta breathe, all these things.
Yes.
No, my body needs to function and I need to be able to do those things,
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love all these examples that you're giving. I think those are all stress incontinence, aren't they?
Yes.
So tell me more about stress incontinence in particular. It's when
there's stress on the pelvic floor. So whether it's from lifting, from coughing, from sneezing, from laughing, any intra-abdominal pressure or stress that the pelvic floor cannot hold. And then sometimes these things occur, like when we were talking about laughing. So we see this more in our teenage group here, is they don't have incontinence issues, but normally, but for some reason, when they let their guard down and those muscles relax, that's when they leak,
Interesting.
And so that one's really tough because the same thing, you're laughing with your girlfriends or you have an overnight and when girls are hanging out, there's just lots of giggling and laughter and they leak. Or they're going to play their sport and they get into things and that's when they leak, But it's typically we see that when they're getting that relaxed state or let their guard down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about all the different modifications that women make in the event that might happen, because like you said, some of it is like, well, I'm just not going to even participate in the activity. Then I just will excuse myself. I won't go to an overnight, or I might not participate in sport, or I won't do that coffee shop visit or whatever. So a lot of times it's like, I'll just excuse myself
I have
from the
to plan
activity.
on bringing an extra change of clothes, or
Right.
I know before I do that, then I'm going to make sure I go to the bathroom so that I don't have anything to leak. Or maybe I start decreasing my fluid intake because I think, well, if there's nothing in there, then there's nothing to leak, right?
Absolutely.
And so women just start to, again, change their habits, change their lifestyle, and trying to grasp at anything that they think will help to get rid of this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good point that you bring up. And I do believe that you can see just from the little bit that we've discussed about it, how much modification, when modification like that happens, rather, that all of a sudden this starts to take over a person's life and their life becomes almost kind of controlled by that.
Yes.
No
Yes.
other.
And that's when you can kind of see the star or the brightness in their eyes is when you can tell someone, hey, it's possible to be in control of this again. And I always, as we're going over bladder irritants and things like that, I try to make that point too, like here's some things that could be potential irritants, but the point isn't to get rid of all these things that could be irritants, but it's to have the education to know and to be in control. So I tease and say, well, if someone took my coffee away in the morning or my wine away at night, I'd be like, forget it, not doing that. But the point is for me to know that could be a symptom from that. And then I'm in control of it. So I'm in control of making that decision and I know what's going to happen behind that. And if I choose to do that, then I'm in control of it. It's much better than if I am not educated on it and I'm not sure why it's happening. So I'm completely out of control of the situation, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what we want as women, maybe even as humans. We like to be in control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm thinking about some of those examples you gave, and we were talking about the example of stress incontinence. Now, so when you have more pressure in your abdomen and you have a leak that's unexpected, and you mentioned something about like, particularly when it's not expected, how much that can throw someone off. So, laughing is an example, but I think coughing or sneezing or
and sometimes those things come on so quick. So if we don't have the strength to control that excessive pressure, that's one thing. And sometimes we have the strength with I'll say normal everyday activities, but when something quick comes like a sneeze, we don't have time to prepare ourselves for it. So if you've ever seen anyone, we all kind of have a reaction to that. We all kind of bring our knees in and that's just our response. Like, I mean, or even if you've seen a little kid when they have to go potty, they start crossing their legs and they do their little pee-pee dance, you know? I mean, we have this natural, we tend to kind of close in and that's how we hold. And so even if we have the strength, that's kind of what, I guess, a natural way and a default way that we kind of prepare ourselves for that. But then as the pelvic floor muscles get weaker, sometimes we can't control something that comes on quicker, or we can't control those more intense pressures.
One example that I think is common is yelling for your children on the field, right? You're totally not thinking about it. It's like, go, or whatever. Like,
whoops. Yeah. And your kids are probably like, good for you. Stop yelling at me.
Too funny.
That'll teach you to yell at the ref or to yell at the...
I love it. Well, so those are all stress incontinence. Yeah. There's something called urge incontinence too. And so can you speak to that a little bit for us?
And that's when, truly that is controlling people's lives, because when you leave the house, before you leave the house, you're like, whoop, better go to the bathroom because maybe I'm not sure where the next bathroom is. Or lots of these people would tell me, I know where every rest stop is on the way to go see my kid because I know I'm going to have to stop. I can only make it this long. Or I won't drink anything because I know I'm going to have to go to the bathroom too often. When I walk into the grocery store or into a building, I am scanning the room and I need to know where the bathroom is because I am so afraid that as soon as I have to go or that urgency hits, I better be there and know where that is, or there's going to be a problem, right? And so you see with those patients for sure. I mean, when they come in and you tell them, you really shouldn't go just in case, then that fear hits them. Well, okay, lady, but if I don't do this, then I'm going to have an accident.
Sure.
And so, but the fun thing with these people is this one is typically a quicker one to learn by just changing some of those habits. And again, understanding the condition. they can make those changes rather quickly and see some of those results.
Would that be because with urge incontinence or the urge to go all the time, it's not necessarily a weakness issue, it's the bladder reflex
They've
issue?
trained their bladder to be that way, right?
Okay,
And
speak more to that.
if you empty your bladder every time it's at a certain level, then your bladder begins to think that it's full at that level, right? And so it's letting you know, I need to go, I need to go. And so if you're decreasing your fluid intake and it only gets to a certain level and you're emptying, again, your bladder thinks it needs to go when it's at that level. If you're just emptying it so frequently, then it thinks it needs to be at that level. So you've trained it to do that. Right? And so if you know that, and then we can give you some tips on how to control that urgency and then start slowly increasing that time in between voiding, then again, you're more in control.
So, the old reflex trick, trick that we used to do to our knees when we were kids and whatever. And obviously we do that in physical therapy, test reflexes. And it's you hit it with a reflex hammer and you just can't help it. It's a reflexive action that occurs and you measure the strength of it and so forth. With this reflex in the bladder, it can be trained. So it's not something that you can't help. It just doesn't, and whatever, or the strength of it you can't control. You're saying the reflex loop of the bladder is
It's going to be reset or retrained. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, somebody has to go all the time. What's the baby step?
So, I have had people come in and they're telling me every 30 minutes I have to go. And if I'm at home, I just go because it's there.
I can.
Because I can. But then it becomes I can't leave the house because I have to go every 30 minutes. So if someone's telling me that, and then we know the normal is that you should be able to make it closer to that 3-hour range. Our goal is not to jump from 30 minutes to 3 hours. If I were to tell someone that, they would be scared to death, right? They would say, no way that's even possible. So we want to start in baby steps. So your first goal is to make it to an hour. And I always tell everyone, I'm not going to ask you to do this until I show you how to do this, right? So once you feel comfortable, let's say with your breathing techniques or your quick contractions, then I'm going to ask you to do that. I'm going to ask you to do that in a safe environment, such as your home. So then if we're not successful and we end up having to change our pants, we're just at home. So please, let's not start this and go out to a movie or go out to dinner. And let's start where you're comfortable, where we can make sure you're successful without being embarrassed and have the right tools to be there.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to that hour. And then once you're comfortable with the hour, we'll use that same technique to bump you up again. So maybe we're making it 2 hours and then until you're making it, up to the 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, interesting that it's baby steps at first, but then once I see I can actually do this, and she's right, we're resetting my clock or my reflex to say I have to go to the bathroom when I'm more full. I can make it from an hour to 2 hours. I know I can because I made it from a half hour in increments up to an hour. This is something that's achievable for me.
Yes. And I think that's the big thing is being kind to yourself and celebrating small successes. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see what's possible. Now I have hope, and I'm trading hope for shame, but I'm also trading hope for fear. You know, I
and that's the biggest thing. Yes. People are afraid.
I think about what you were saying about, 30 minutes and then I have to go. That means if that were true for me, that means I'm the mom that wants to go pick my children up. They're out of school. But that line to be able to pick my child up,
you're not going to make it.
I'm not going to make it. So now I can't pick my child up from school, which is such for a mom to be able to pick your kid up from school and bring them home and hear the stories of the day and just welcome
you
them
can't
home.
even make it through making dinner for your family.
It's a good point. Yeah. So something needs to come out of the oven at this point. You know how things are in succession and so forth with preparing a meal. That's an impossibility unless the bathroom is close or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think about other circumstances where, if I only had 30 minutes, what else does that exclude me from? I mean, maybe now I can't even grocery shop.
I can't grocery shop in 30 minutes.
Yeah. That's why I just
That's why I do grocery pickup.
We have no idea the benefits of that grocery pickup for women with urge incontinence. That's
Thank
hilarious.
goodness. No.
But truly, you think about how your life would have to be modified if you only have 30 minutes to accomplish a thing or you're needed somewhere else. I mean, women are used to multitasking, but gosh, that's quite the.
And then the fear that hits when you get close to that. And I remember when I had my first child, and you think everything has to be perfect and on the dot. And so, I was told he had to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And if we were out and we were getting close to that 2 hours, well, I thought, oh man, we have to immediately stop and have to feed him or this baby is going to starve. And I'm like, I don't know why we think, but we get these ideas in our head. And it's the same thing. If that's what I know to be my reality, is that I can only make it 30 minutes. When I start getting close to that time, I start panicking a little bit, right? Which then doesn't help my situation at all.
Right. Yeah. Just become controlled by fear. And we're just not supposed to live like that. Yeah. So stress incontinence, then there's urge incontinence. We kind of talked about that. Like I have the need to go a lot and that can be helped. And then there's something called mixed incontinence.
Yep. So that's when you have a combination of both.
Okay.
You have the sudden urge to go, you're going frequently, but then you also have leakage and incontinence with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if there's hope for one type and the other type, there's hope for a mixed
both.
type.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's great. Well, so thinking about then the stories of incontinence and what that looks like, maybe our listener has heard themselves in some of those scenarios and so forth. Let's shift to pelvic organ prolapse. So common stories that we see or we know or we've read. I think through your years of practice, we would never ask you to tell a story of a patient that you saw, but there might be trends that you could say, this is very commonly seen or things like that. But let's talk a little bit about pelvic organ prolapse and what that woman that suffers from that might look like.
Yeah. And I think when we see this group of women coming across, again, there's a fear of this word. There's a fear, like I'm standing in the shower and I feel like something is about to fall out. That's pretty scary, and then you're educated on what prolapse is and you're still scared to death, right? And you're thinking, is surgery my only option here? What is there that I can even do about this? Because so many people don't even know physical therapy is an option, or they think, how's physical therapy going to help me with my organs? And so I like to really encourage that patient that we can help you, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. I think you should always, in my opinion, it's good to start with physical therapy, because just like with any other surgery, if that's absolutely what you need, having the base and the strength prior to that is going to make you more successful afterwards, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Same thing with if you needed a pessary. We've got to that breathing technique and pressure management, and you're being in the right posture and position so the bowl of muscles support those organs better, being able to move in all three directions. That's setting your body up for success, even if we can't fully correct, say, a grade 4.
Yeah. So I heard you say the woman with the pelvic organ prolapse, first of all, we already had discussed in our previous episode about how they might not even know, depending on which grade of prolapse it is. But the woman that understands the prolapse, that there's a problem, I heard you say in the shower, you feel like like there's a pressure or a
heaviness.
The
other women that would know are the ones that, in order to have a bowel movement, they have to insert their finger into their vagina or their rectum in order to successfully go. So there are certain instances, if I have that feeling, or I'm sitting and I see that, I can see that it's coming out. So I obviously, if I don't know it's a prolapse, I know something's not right. Or I'm having to manually move something in order to have a successful bowel movement. I mean, those would be ones that you know something is wrong. And who
Yes.
wants to have to do that, right?
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. I think about, you mentioned pressure management and the intra-abdominal pressure, and when you bear down and you have prolapse, that makes that condition worse because, of course, there's pressure on your pelvic floor. So I think about like the athlete that lifts weights and
Yes.
wants to enjoy heavy weightlifting and things like that, but maybe is excusing themselves from that activity because every time I pick it up, I have pressure and maybe I don't know how to breathe properly through
Right.
lifting weights or things like that.
Right. And that could be someone that doesn't realize that they have one. So a lot of women that, we've had multiple children, and maybe in some ways we kind of expect that this may happen. We hope that it doesn't. But if I'm an athlete lifting weights, I'm not thinking, ooh, prolapse may happen here. And so I think, again, that education on the front end, how do I breathe correctly, not performing a Valsalva, those types of things, and just learning those techniques. If everything could be preventative and if everyone could just have the education, then maybe this happens a lot less, right?
Right. And maybe the app can help people who, even ahead of time, to say, it's like brushing and flossing my teeth. I want to know these techniques because I don't want that condition. Or, maybe some things I haven't suffered from, but I sure don't want to because this that I am dealing with is enough, because people can have both, right? It's not as though if I have pelvic organ prolapse that I won't have incontinence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, and going back a little bit, I mean, so many women, and we hear this all the time, they go, "Oh, I can't even breathe right." Like we didn't even know that we weren't breathing correctly with the activities that we do. And it doesn't even have to be heavy weightlifting. It could be picking our babies up, getting them out of their car seats, out of the crib. It could be gardening. It could be yard work. Those are types of things where we may feel that pressure more if we have a prolapse. So just learning that proper breathing technique and getting your body in sync with that proper breathing technique is truly one of the foundational things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think about, you bring up a good point. We talked about athletes lifting weights, but you said, oh, even lifting a baby or a car seat. I mean, and they're so awkward the way you need to carry them out to the side and whatever. And just having had a baby and all of those kinds of things, that they're, I think of like water softener salt, and pouring that. Like there are so many different other conditions, carrying groceries,
Yes.
Taking them out of the trunk maybe, or, depending on the type of car, bending over and lifting laundry,
Yes.
up and downstairs with laundry, or just even if it's not on a different floor, just picking up the basket.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those things, and knowing and so, there's times that our pelvic floor is susceptible to being weaker. And so after childbirth, of course, when you're breastfeeding, it can be a little bit weaker. As we get older, with changes in estrogen and things, it can be weaker. And so making sure that our body is prepared and our muscles are strong during those times, and that we're using these proper techniques. Some people, will go through and tell me, they were like, I'm not breathing right. And, oh, do you know there's a right way to poop? Like,
Right.
Yes. And people go, no.
Right.
Who knew that there was a right way? But if we're struggling with constipation, and even if we're not, we really always want to make sure, going back to that pressure management, that we blow as we go. So versus straining and holding your breath, that doesn't allow the bowel movement to occur successfully. So if we blow as we go, it's much easier for that bowel movement to happen. So also, a lot of people have heard of the squatty potty, but aren't sure why they should use it or if it's needed for them. And that also helps just by putting your pelvis in a better position for you to have a successful bowel movement.
Sure. So for gravity, to align my my colon, to align all my organs, but also my muscles now are at an optimal length to work with gravity or against gravity and things like that, the way they were designed. So depending on how my pelvis is tilted, it will will make those organs stand in the proper position so gravity can help, or so that also my muscles are in the optimal position to work.
be able to relax and push out and those types of things. Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. And so if you think again about a busy mom, like when your kids are little, you don't have time to go to the bathroom. They're maybe in there with you. Their little heads are peeking under the door like, hey, Mom, what are you doing there? And you're thinking like, don't you know your dad's out there? You can't you ask him?
Yes. I think about babies, but also how about fur babies, right?
Oh,
they
them
want
too.
to follow their moms into the bathroom and things too. And are you done yet, Mom? And so
And so
forth.
we're always in a hurry and we're rushing ourselves because someone's waiting at the door, you know? So it's very important for us to take the time and to, breathe through it, because that continued straining or continued dealing with constipation can lead to a prolapse.
And interesting, there is also, you can prolapse the rectum as well.
Yes.
It's not just the pelvic organ. It's not just the bladder, but the rectum itself can prolapse out.
Yes.
Yes. And so fecal incontinence, we haven't talked about that a lot, but that's a problem as well that women have. And can you imagine the embarrassment of that as much as nobody wants to leak urine, but can you imagine leaking stool?
Right.
And you want to talk about the activities you're going to excuse yourself from, but that's a very real problem that women deal with as well.
Yes, very much so. And there's fear with the urinary incontinence, but even more so with the fecal incontinence, right? And so it's just not having control. And it doesn't always mean your stool. It could even be gas, right? And
sure.
how embarrassing is that to get up and
Right.
and you can't control it because your muscles, can't contract or control that, and so you don't know when it's going to happen. So let's say you're meeting your son's new girlfriend or something. You get up and,
but it happens.
It does happen. And, I might not be as embarrassed if it's my best friend, that's
Sure.
my age and understands, and that happens. But for a younger person that's sitting there meeting me for the first time, like, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. And isn't it just like a mom to be mortified for herself, but even more mortified for her son? That,
right.
Like, oh my goodness, look what,
Yeah. This one might not be a keeper. She may never come back.
Well, so we talked about, I wanted to go back. You had said something about, hormones. You were talking about hormones and that ligaments that hold those pelvic organs in place. Sometimes, depending on the hormone level, that ligaments might stretch more or might not be as elastic in holding organs up.
That, yeah.
Could that happen through a menstrual cycle as well? So there are different levels of hormones that are active throughout your cycle.
Yes.
And then, so I don't ever maybe experience symptoms of that except every so many days or every so many,
and
I don't.
That happens with that. We see that with the patients that experience pain too. And they'll go, whoop, every time I'm at this point in my cycle, my pain is worse, and talking about that, so many people, and especially young girls, and again, I mean, yes, we were taught that we would have a menstrual cycle and everything, but so many people don't really know what's normal. So what's normal is what's normal to them. So if I've always had really heavy periods, I think that's normal, and I don't understand that maybe that is not. Or if I am missing my periods and have them, and they're spaced really far out, I may think that's normal. And that's all related to kind of those hormonal balances and things like that. So I think it's very important, and we'll have a tracker for that so that ladies can kind of see, am I falling within these normal ranges, and how can I keep track of that? Because it affects so many different things in all areas.
Yeah. Interesting that through a menstrual cycle, my ligaments might be more lax, but it's also interesting that even throughout, if I have a hypermobility syndrome that I'm not aware of, that, like I might, my fingers go back super far, or I can put my hands to the floor, bend over and put my hands to the floor. I'm hypermobile. I might not realize that. I always just thought I was flexible, but no, actually I'm hypermobile.
Right.
So
and
that,
we see that a lot with women too. Around their cycle, their SI gets out of place, or they have some SI discomfort. And a lot of times when we understand that body part better, we can understand that it goes with that. But a lot with the pelvic floor dysfunctions, we're just not that familiar with that part of our body, quite frankly. So sometimes it takes us a while to associate it with that.
Interesting, because you'd think, do I really have the problem or do I not? Because so much of my life is not affected, but every fourth week or every whatever, I seem to kind of
right. And
struggle.
how those things are interconnected, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing with all of this is how all of these systems are interconnected.
Yeah, that's great. So when we talked about menstruation and painful menstruation and things like that, that's also a part of pelvic pain in that whole area. So for our listeners, pelvic pain, can you help us to understand some of the areas that women might have pelvic pain that they maybe don't seek treatment for? They think it's normal or too embarrassing or whatever.
Right. So I think sometimes we see women that have associated hip pain or low back pain, and they don't see the connection to the pelvic floor. Because again, a lot of times with women coming in, it's just like, really, what is my pelvic floor, and the expansiveness of the pelvic floor muscles, and it's not just simply my vagina, right? And so just they may have pelvic floor pain, and they're feeling it in other places, and they just don't associate it with the pelvic floor. You could have pubic symphysis pain, and that's closer, and so you understand that a little bit more. But maybe we have some pelvic tightness that is leading to pain. And maybe we've had pelvic tightness for a long time, and we don't have pain until it comes to something like intercourse. And so you see a lot of times with young ladies that they may not even know this until they have their first partner or get married. And how devastating is that, right?
Sure.
You're looking forward to this, and then all of a sudden, wait, this doesn't work.
Right.
This is not what I expected this to be. And then, of course, as women, we've let our partner down, we've let our spouse down, and it's just devastating.
Yeah, he made a mistake in marrying me, or...
And people have said that exact thing. People have said, I gave him the option to get out. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this. So why would you still want to be married to me?
Yeah, it's so
and just
sad.
So sad.
It really is. I remember thinking my husband wasn't going to show up the day of the wedding. So I was very happy to know
that
when
he was there.
Yeah.
And he keeps showing up.
Yeah. So I appreciate those stories. They're really good. So painful intercourse, but also can be, I think about there are nerves that supply that whole pelvic floor area, and you can have pain even with sitting.
Yes. So you can have pain with the prolonged sitting. You can have pain with arousal. So some people have painful orgasms. And so that goes with the nerves that are distributed that area. Yeah.
And can you imagine that scenario?
Right.
Like I really, again, in marriage, is what I'm thinking, like.
I've been told that this should be enjoyable, and it's not.
Right.
In fact, it's painful. So, and then what happens is then when you experience this pain and you experience these letdowns, then your body responds to that. So
speak more about that.
Yeah. And so we see that a lot because number one, people don't come to us right away.
Yeah.
Whether it be the fear, whether they don't know that there's anything that they can do about it. They've been told there's nothing that they can do about it. They've been told to suck it up. Some people even say, I was told, suck it up or my husband will leave me.
Oh, gosh.
And how horrible is that, And so we're afraid. So we keep trying. We keep trying, and we keep having this negative experience. And so that builds up, right? And so your body anytime you go to do that activity, it doesn't want to, because every experience is bad. Every experience is negative. And so when you finally do seek help and we work on the musculoskeletal portion and work on those muscles to relax, it still takes women a long time to get over that. I always remind them, you have to have several good experiences with this before your body knows that it's a good thing.
Yeah. Gosh, Leah, I just think about the hope that you are giving to women who just like to deal with that despondency and to know there is a solution. We'll work with it. It's not gonna be overnight. There's a
Right.
process, but I'll walk through it with you, and I'll yeah.
And it's your body's normal response, right? Because a lot of them will say, well, why, we're doing so well with this, and I feel like I'm making progress, but why are we still not successful? And then you beat yourself up. And so what we want to encourage women is celebrate every small step. Every small step. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but if you get a little bit further each time, celebrate it.
Yes, it's so good.
And pat yourself on the back for the perseverance and the courage, for both you and your partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it takes patience on both sides, doesn't it?
Yes.
And understanding
And huge communication.
oh, yeah. Good point. With something that's already so embarrassing to talk about to
Right.
begin with, blame, you think about guilt. There are so many other little things that can sneak in that make that, just so
Right.
much more difficult to deal with.
Right.
Gosh. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, but for stories to the listeners. I hope that you recognize yourself. Well, I don't hope that you recognize yourself, but I hope that if you struggle with these things, you recognize yourself and that it's really a kind of a common thing. We think that it's not, and it's shrouded in secrecy and shame and embarrassment. And our encouragement to you is that you tune in more, that you become more comfortable in your own body, that you understand that there are women that struggle with this too. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe for more episodes. We want to deep dive into these topics and many more as we unpack and normalize stigmas around women's health. So for more information and other ways to get plugged into our community of women who are clothed in strength, dignity, and who can laugh at the days to come, be sure to check out our website. It's pelvicare.com, or you can download the app. See you next time.